We are doing the second half of the Ron DeSantis radio podcast off of Blog Talk Radio. The name of our show is Political Gravity. We have 3 African American hosts, 1 conservative, 1 guest caller, and 1 who thinks differently about education in the post-Common Core era. Also, I'm Minnesotan Scandinavian with African roots, and my friend John is Latino. Here we go.
It will leave just as confused as they were when they first came on the subject. When I'm speaking on the subject...
maybe you guys could do some things to promote our listening audience. I do it on Twitter and Facebook, but I don't do it, because of my schedule, I don't do a broad scope of advertising. I'll just read the law now that I have a quick chance. 160.516 curriculum, textbooks, and other instructional materials not to be mandated by state board or department. Exceptions. Appendix to Common Core standards not to be required. That's the headliner for the Missouri law. It says that the State Board of Education and Department of Elementary and Secondary Education shall not require districts to use any appendix to the Common Core state standards. Well, a lot of states do require it.
It also says about the curriculum and textbooks. Could you read that? It's right at the top.
I'm trying to. It's a long thread.
It's only a sentence at the top. Yeah.
Well, one thing, Nevada was one of the 7 states that went to Common Core immediately, and we embraced it with a governor, Republican governor who was against.
Don, we have a guest caller, so could you hold on a sec?
Yeah.
Who is calling in, please? Can we get your name? Or do you apparently you just want to listen? I'll give you 30 seconds to answer.
Hello, are you speaking to me?
Yes, I'm speaking to the guest caller who just called into the show.
Oh, okay. Well, I hadn't pushed 1 yet, but okay. Thank you for taking my call. Hi. My name is Sarge, and hi.
Yes?
You got one of my good comrades on, if I can use that term, Brother Bianchi. And yeah, I was really gratified. Right. I was really gratified to hear what Ron DeSantis did in Florida, because it's certainly being distorted all over the press and all over the news. They're saying he doesn't want to teach Black history, which is a complete distortion and a lie. I took a cursory look at this curriculum, and I got to admit, 3/4 of it or so is pretty sound scholarship. It's not until you get to the end where they add this critical race theory, elements of this critical race theory, and this queer gender studies stuff, and all of this ideological indoctrination at the end that makes it unacceptable under Florida law.
You know, I think that's a reasonable argument. Why do you think they added that part of the curriculum? Just to make it modern-like?
Oh, no, we know why they're doing it in almost everything where they can get away with it. Their objective, ultimately, is not to educate our children. It's to indoctrinate them. It is to guide their thinking. Not teach them how to think, but teach them what to think. And that is primarily that this is a fundamentally racist, oppressive, unfair country. Every one of its foundational and institutional structures needs to be completely replaced, revamped, and overhauled, because it can never be reformed. And what's going to come out of it is something that the United States was never envisioned to be, nor intended to be, nor should be, because it will be about control. It will be about socialism, come Marxism, come progressivism, come, a gender muddled racial identity, obsessed, muddled madness. That is their ultimate goal, and like everything else they do with their insidious practices, I'm talking about the left and progressivism, they do it incrementally.
Well, John touched upon that as far as having control. However, Ron DeSantis, even though he has a degree from Yale and Harvard, he made a comment during this whole news breaking story that slavery wasn't even considering to be abolished until the group of, decision-making men decided it was against the better will of the country to continue slavery. Like, they gave no credence to the slaves themselves or the abolitionist movement. So I do think, I know Ron DeSantis has a lot of good credentials. He's served in the Navy. He had a good education. He has a law degree. But I do think his general way of thinking is narrow-minded. And I'm not necessarily a liberal, but I do think he himself is doing some kind of agenda setting. However, the way you presented your argument was excellent, and I agree on many of your points. Would any of my other co-hosts like to comment?
Well,
go ahead, Don, John, or Bianchi.
Yeah. No, what the gentleman was saying was probably correct. Our Constitution is antiquated. It wasn't meant for everyone anyway. So we've got to probably look at some kind of changes, which is why I'm a citizen lobbyist. But the main thing is that we have to be careful that if there is a constitutional convention, that it doesn't get worse. The laws don't get more unjust, unfettered for what is good for the union instead of what is good for the few. So there are a lot of things that we have to be careful on if we are to indeed go ahead and change some of the things the gentleman was just saying.
Missouri State Statute, Chapter 160, 160.516, it says curriculums, textbooks, and other instructional material not to be mandated by state board or department, exceptions, appendix to Common Core standards not to be required. Then it goes on into Section 1. Notwithstanding the provisions of Section 160.514, the State Board of Education and the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education shall not be authorized to mandate and are expressly prohibited from mandating the curriculum, textbooks, or other instructional material to be used in public schools. Each local school board shall be responsible for the approval and adoption of curriculum.
This is old.
Man, don't you hear somebody else talking?
But this is old.
No, that's not the point. Somebody else is talking.
Okay, come on, guys.
There is no.
You need to mute him. You're a grown man. Don't went through all kinds of experiences, including prison.
There is no more Common Core, Bianchi. It's gone.
I'm not telling you what there is or there's not. I'm telling you what the law reads. Is that simple to understand?
But it doesn't.
Okay,
I'm telling you what the law reads.
Okay, stop everybody, or I'm going to mute at least two of you.
Doesn't exist anymore.
You need to mute him. I'm trying to read the law. Now I'll start over.
It's not the law.
Okay, Don, just wait till he's...
the law.
Don, wait till he's done.
Common Core no longer exists.
This is a state statute in the state of Missouri. You can find it today.
I was going to read it, but we had a guest caller, so I didn't think it was the right time. Go ahead and read it.
Oh, actually, yeah, you ought to let him read it, because once he finishes reading that, I'll read you what the Florida law says, which is why what they're doing in Florida is against the law in Florida.
And I'll read you what the Louisiana says after him, if I can continue. It says, notwithstanding the provisions of Section 160.514, the State Board of Education and the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education shall not be authorized to mandate or expressly prohibit from mandating the curriculum, textbook, or other instructional material to be used in public schools. Each local school board shall be responsible for the approval and adoption of curriculum used by the school district. The provision of this subsection shall not apply to schools and instruction programs administered by the State Board of Education and the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, or to school districts that are classified as unaccredited. The State Board of Education and the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education shall not require districts to use any appendix to Common Core state standards. This was passed in 2014.
Thank you.
And,
Now
and not only that, in Florida, yeah, and not only that, in Florida, the stop woke. Hello?
His phone is cut. Your phone's cutting out.
Oh, I'm sorry. How's this? Is this better?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay. The Florida Stop Woke Act forbids by law any K-12 attempt to promote the idea that being colorblind is racist. Now, if you look at the readings of most of the study core, one aspect of the study in the final 1/4 of the Advanced Placement African American Studies, Unit 4, Movements and Debates, it rejects the notion of colorblindness as not being racist. One of the topics is explicitly devoted to colorblindness. There's this critical race theory advocate, a gentleman named Eduardo Bonilla Silva, who is best known for his theory of colorblind racism. He says they suggest that the students need to study his writings in the colorblind racism. And overall, the most of the stuff in the last 25% or so of this advanced placement African American studies, the part devoted to ideological controversies rather than just a recital of history as the best, most accurate sources of history reveal it to be, are very one-sided. They promote leftist radicalism with no classical liberal points of view that, conform with best teaching standards throughout history. And if DeSantis was to have approved this particular course of study, he would be effectively nullifying, rendering nugatory his own Stop Woke Act.
I guess my opinion is it's okay to express people's personal gut feelings even as a governor, but I do think that he's alienating at least 1/3 of his electorate. But because he goes on to say that he doesn't want Disney to have any type of agenda as far as promoting or not promoting a certain race, and I don't think he's going to be appealing on a national level when he runs for president.
Well, we may or may not be, but I think that we need to have someone stand up for the principle that any practice that amounts to racial discrimination against any ethnic group is not only immoral, it is also illegal and unconstitutional. And in practice, that's what's being done. Now, I hope he can educate people as to why this is so, because there should be no doubt. It should
Let me ask you a question.
Obvious what it is.
Let me ask you a question, sir. Did you say that Florida already has a law dealing with quote unquote woke?
Yes, they have the Stop Woke Act. It was passed by the Florida legislature.
It was passed by the Florida legislature.
He's the one who generated
it. Ma'am,
it.
can I finish getting the point across over
Yeah, but the legislator had to pass it. Yes, he recommended that someone sponsor it. Someone did, and the legislature approved it. That's what
the state legislature voted to put it into effect. And now along comes this thing about AP classes, and they want to put that in effect, which effectively go against a law that was already passed and introduced and passed. It's the law. It's a standing statute in the state of Florida. So why would he approve something that goes against a standing statute in the state of Florida? It don't make sense.
Not only that, when he wrote the letter to the college board informing the college board that the state of Florida was rejecting its request for state approval of the Advanced Placement African American Studies curriculum, the letter went on to say this. This is what the letter they wrote to Florida Department of Education's Office of Articulation. Quote, as presented, the content of this course is inexplicably contrary to Florida law and significantly lacks educational value. At the same time, the letter noted that, quote, in the future, should college board be willing to come back to the table with lawful, historically accurate content, Florida Department of Education will always be willing to reopen the discussion. So, Governor DeSantis decided that this does, in fact, violate the law by attempting to persuade students of at least many of the tenets, if not the actual strict legal theory of critical race theory. And that's his job as governor.
Mm-hmm. John, do you have any comments?
And by the way, they did come back with a revised, but when they dropped all that stuff, and the course was approved. I think it was yesterday or earlier today. I heard something about that they revised the studies. They got rid of the ideological indoctrination, and the good scholarship in the course was approved by the Florida Department of Education.
Yeah, because he did leave a window open saying he would accept a revised curriculum on the course.
Well, yes, and I'm happy he did because he removed all that, what I want to call is garbage, inaccuracy, and things that's designed to shame whites in America. That should not have been in there, and they try to sneak it in, and there's other instances around the country where they have tried to sneak the same thing in. People are aware of this. It's not going no place. It should be up to the parents, up to the stakeholders in the district. What books, what curriculum, and is offered by the school district. And here's another thing. You know what organization is against that? You know what organizations against parents having that control over their children's education? The NAACP. And I can show you many articles. I can show you letters from their heads, state heads in Missouri, when they talk about that. They're against it.
Now, here's what the law specifically prohibits in its text. 1, members of one race, color, national origin, or sex are morally superior to members of another race, color, national origin, or sex. 2, a person by virtue of his or her race, color, national origin, or sex is inherently racist, sexist, or oppressive, whether consciously or unconsciously. 3, a person's moral character or status has either privileged or oppressed is necessarily determined by his or her race, color, national origin, or sex. 4, members of one race, color, national origin, or sex cannot and should not attempt to treat others without respect to race, color, national origin, or sex. 5, a person, by virtue of his or her race, color, national origin, or sex, bears responsibility for or should be discriminated against or receive adverse treatment because of actions committed in the past by other members of the same race, color, national origin, or sex. 6, a person, by virtue of his or her race, color, national origin, or sex, should be discriminated against or receive adverse treatment to achieve diversity, equity, or inclusion. 7, a person, by virtue of his or her race, color, sex, or national origin, bears personal responsibility for and must feel guilt, anguish, or other forms of psychological distress because of actions in which the person played no part, committed in the past by other members of the same race, color, national origin, or sex. And finally, such virtues as merit, excellence, hard work, fairness, neutrality, objectivity, and racial colorblindness are racist or sexist or were created by members of a particular race, color, national origin, or sex to oppress members of another race, color, national origin, or sex. I don't think it should be difficult at all to persuade the great majority of American people that this is a just, correct, and necessary law, given what's going on today.
What do you think by teaching that class would oppress? I want it in your own words. I didn't catch your first name. By teaching that class in your own words, do you think it would cause overt subjugation of one race to another?
What I think it will cause, what I think is intended to do is, number one, I think the primary purpose of it is to stifle free speech. Because this kind of woke teachings cannot stand up to scrutiny. If you tell me, when it came out, remember the 1619 Project with the New York Times was touting all over the place? Remember that?
Yes.
Yeah, I remember.
Oh, Hannah Jones, and they gave it a Nobel Prize, and I mean, it was just absurd. When you look at it, it is lousy history. Not only is it indoctrination and almost silly and specious, it's lousy history. It is literally untrue. So the only way they can get you to not examine this and look at it point by point and literally dissect it, which is easy to do because it's so bad. You know, it takes elements of truth and just totally distorts them. The only way they can get you to not do is to shut you up, make you guilt trip, shut you up, intimidate you, bully you. And that's what this law is intended to stop.
So do you think most Americans, whether they're 18 or 45, can discern in their own intellectual minds indoctrination versus truth?
Oh, absolutely. I believe that I believe once upon a time, that's exactly what schools tended to teach by subjecting everything to epistemological observation. That is the best way to determine truth of anything. But in order to do so, you've got to have a standard to measure it from. Transcendent objective truth is just that. It's not subject to moral relativism or a sliding scale. And if there is no agreement on what that is, then you're right. You probably never can discern it. That means it's going to be whoever's in power will be able to arbitrarily determine what transcendent objective truth is. They might not even claim to know it. They'll just tell you, this is the truth, and you will just accept it. I mean, I think if you want to know what that truth is that used to be taught to every American, almost without comment, because it literally would stand on its own, it is the second paragraph of the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator, not by man, but by their Creator, with certain unalienable rights. And amongst these are the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. You can hardly come up with a more perfectly crystallized statement of transcendent truth than that.
And you know another thing,
and I do believe that some of the dialogue in the
apply to everyone.
You know the thing too.
It didn't apply to them.
You know the thing too is that the Constitution does not project group rights. It projects individual rights.
I do believe in the public market square, whether it's a CNN talk show or Instagram or something going on Twitter, that there is a lot of subjectiveness in people's attempt at rational debate, whether it's about race relations or things being fair or not fair, in economic disparity. I do think there is a lot of strong biases And I don't think our society is no longer capable of having rational dialogue, at least especially on social media platforms and mainstream news shows. It's all coming from a perspective of how ridiculous the other person is, and then they spin off from that.
Yeah. So in other words, what we're being seen oftentimes, rather than having, because I think every proposition, including the one I just laid out, should be subject to debate and rigorous, rigorous analysis. I think everything should be. I mean, you shouldn't just take for granted that. Well, he would hold these truths to be self-evident. Well, why do we hold these truths to be self-evident? I welcome that debate. The problem is that there isn't that anymore. What there is bullying. There's intimidation.
It's true, because
how could you say that? You don't have the right to say that. You can't culturally appropriate this, that, or the other.
It's
true, Don and everybody else, because what they do is they start out in these talk shows with one comment that their so-called political opponent says, and then they just magnify that comment into distortion. That's why even this whole debate about Ron DeSantis said got exploited. Now I am going to go on to the bathroom, and I'm leaving John in charge while I go to the bathroom.
If I could say something, the whole problem is, one of the problems is that you got these limited thinking people who are black that think that all blacks should be lockstep in their ideas. And that just is not true. They're not going to be cohesive. They're not going to be a monologue. No ethnic groups have that completeness within their group. It's a fictitious theory, and it does not work.
Mm-hmm. I tell you, look at the way they distorted what Ron DeSantis did. I mean, all I heard from the opposite side of his point of view was how he didn't want African American history taught. That was just a bald-faced lie. It was an outright lie, a calumny, and a slander. It had no relationship whatsoever to his critique of this particular course. It was pure demagoguery. But this is what we're up against these days. Now, look,
did you hear what happened at Howard University?
I've been a black man all my life. Once upon a time, I would have been in complete league with the people who are doing this kind of thing, with this woke idea. I would have been in complete league with them. I would agree with almost everything they said, almost uncritically. But my life's experiences have taught me better. I no longer believe that, because I did discover transcendent objective truth.
Have you ever read what Howard University did when it fired 2 teachers in one of its charter schools that they used to feed into the high school and the college? They fired 2 teachers because they was teaching outside of the curriculum. Basically, they was teaching some CRT. They was teaching that blacks are superior because they got quote unquote melanin in their skin. And they fired them. Well, they should have fired them.
Yeah. Did you see Project Veritas and another one of their great undercover videos? They got these various teachers talking about, well, no matter what the laws in these states have that are prohibiting this, they are figuring out workarounds to get around ways to introduce elements of critical race theory, intersectionality, queer and gender studies theory into the curriculum anyway, despite what the law says. They got dozens of them caught on camera explaining how they're going to do it and get around it. These people are insidious.
But they don't want.
You guys, make sure everybody's getting a chance to talk. Like, let Don and John talk too. They're the regular host, please. Thank you.
No, I'm just wondering what the fuck they're talking about. All this bullshit.
What are you doing cursing, man? See, that's one thing about you, Jan. You let everything go on your show. We let kids maybe listen to this.
I don't cuss very often, but when I do,
well, some people don't like murder very often.
That's true. And the ones that do, they have a need. And I need to be heard for a second because I just interject things that I see. And the one thing I see is that we've spent 45 minutes talking about some bullshit. So, because CRT doesn't exist, Ron DeSantis, I'm sorry, I thought he was Cuban Italian, but he's not going to do, he's not going to fix this mess with one statement. And so everybody's going off the freaking wall, the fucking wall, about a whole lot of bullshit.
If he gonna keep using that language, Jane, I guess I'm gonna have to leave.
45 minutes of bullshit.
Yeah. Okay, sir.
You sound like somebody spent all your life in prison.
No matter how many obscenities you use, you're not going to make a theory go away that's being taught in universities and college. I'm holding in my hot little hands right now a book named Critical Race Theory by Richard Delgado. I've got another book, Faces at the Bottom of the Well by Derek Bell, another progenitor of critical race theory, and I got another one by Kimberly Crenshaw about critical race theory. They are teaching this in universities as a legal theory, and no amount of your obscenities are going to make them go away.
They have been for and hey, maybe they shouldn't. This is something that is shaking up America. This is going to be, besides the race issue, this is the biggest issue that's going on right now because this is combined with race because it is about suppressing a particular race. I mean, everybody else, just like James said, they have Italian, they have, I took Latin, they have German studies, all kinds of other ancient studies, Asian studies and things. Most colleges have struck down.
I'd like to ask the gentleman a question, though, Bianchi, if I may. Sir, let me ask you a question, sir, and I'd like you to listen to me carefully about my question. Okay, listen carefully to my question. Do you believe that to objectively apply the law to all people, let's say theoretically it is absolutely possible to objectively apply the law to all people who are similarly situated in a situation? They're the same. The situations are roughly the same. Do you think that to apply the law objectively to all people who are similarly situated is racist? Yes or no?
He didn't understand what you said.
I think he understands what I said. That's why he's laughing. Because that's what critical race theory says. Critical race theory says that if you objectively apply the law fairly and objectively to black people, you are committing a racist act against them because the law in and of itself is systemically and institutionally racist. That is critical race legal theory.
There is no law. That's what I'm talking about. There is no critical race theory law. It is.
Yes, there is. There's a philosophy, sir. You haven't studied.
It's a philosophy. Ding, 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 ding. It's a philosophy. It's not a law.
It's a theory.
Yes. Ding, ding, ding. You're right.
And they're trying to incorporate it into law. This is our point. They are trying to make it law.
Trying. Are you fearful?
Yeah, we want to make sure they don't succeed.
You're fearful of your shadow, then you worry about that.
You want to make sure they don't succeed. Look at what's going on. What's going on all around us. It's been happening incrementally for the last 100 years because not enough people stood up against it.
We ain't scared of it.
Not enough of us stood up against it.
Hang on for a second.
That's why we got people being released.
Sarge, I can hardly hear what you're saying because he's trying to talk over you.
Really, but he's talking this madness about fear.
That's not true. There's only one person yelling. There's only one person yelling because
Don, I'm listening to Don trying to. Is it Don or John? They're trying to talk over him.
He's trying to answer him.
The guy is talking.
Okay, everybody be polite, okay, please?
It's not just him. I mean, the thing is that they're talking about things that don't exist, that don't mean anything to anyone but them, and it's not a real thing.
Sorry, let me ask you a question. Did you say
the
that
Russian Revolution, Marxism and communism wasn't a real thing in Russia either?
Let me ask you a question, Sorry. Did you say that the group that was trying to promote this ideological curriculum in the AP class, did you say they came back after they revised it and removed all the rhetoric out of it and everything went okay?
And it was accepted, and I believe it's been accepted by the Florida Department of Education.
Well, that's what should happen. That's where it should have been. When you try to sneak something in that's going to degrade and going to shame another ethnic group, members of another ethnic group had nothing to do about the content that you're talking about, it should be rejected.
And like I said, National Socialism was only a theory until Chancellor Hitler came to power in Germany.
All right, but this is not.
It never existed before 1933 as governmental policy. Now, did it?
What's your next topic, Jane?
Yeah, thank you, Bianchi.
I'm gonna need your thing.
My next topic is post therapy after this radio show.
Whether you want it or not, I thank you.
Yeah,
my original topic was.
We're listening to you, responding to you. We're listening to what you say.
My original topic was why we have four co-hosts.
There you go. And now
who
you're
all
talking
care
over
about
you.
the same thing and are so polarized.
Well, I don't know what. Some topics are worthy of polarization. I mean, I don't know how you split the baby on this one. This is just wrong. It is anti-constitutional. It is anti every ideal, founding, aspirational principle of the United States. It should be rejected. Yes, after a vigorous debate, after letting both sides present their views. But once it has been, I am hoping people will reject it. All ideas are not equal and equivalent.
And you know the thing about this, if and I'm gonna say that if blacks want to teach that type of theory about the white man is the devil, that melanin makes you more superior, they can do that on their own. You can do it in your churches, you can do it in your community centers, you can do it in your house. But when it comes down to public education, no, you can't do that in public education. Schools today have a diverse population. Not only blacks and whites, you got Hispanics, you got Somalians, you got Asians, you got people from Russia, Bosnia, Serbia, Africa. They don't want to hear all that.
And you can have a private school where you can teach all the black or white supremacy you want. As long as you don't take federal funds or state funds or whatever, you can have a school where you can teach anything you want as long as you meet whatever the state establishes as a minimum requirements in a curriculum. So you're free to teach that theory, just not free to do it with state or federal funds, nor should you be.
And that's the key thing right there. They ain't going to pay for their own quote-unquote revolution, as they would like to call it. They ain't going to pay for it. They want somebody else to pay for it. They want, in particular, whites to pay for it.
Keep in mind, please, the technicalities of all this stuff. These guys, first of all, like I said, and like the gentleman said, I don't even know his name. But this is theory, this is philosophy, and y'all are crying like little bitches about nothing. The thing is that this right now is running the way it's supposed to run. The teachers' unions are in charge. The Department of Education in each state is in charge. We shouldn't even have a Department of Education, period. So this shouldn't even be a question for the federal government or anyone but the state.
Remember the big fight 3 or 4 years ago with Betsy DeVos?
But this is being handled at the state level, sir. We're talking about state level action. The Florida Department of Education is doing it.
If Florida wants to do it, I always suggest to everybody they should move the hell out of Florida. They should move the hell out of Missouri and move somewhere reasonable. That's what I've always stated anyway. And Texas, I forgot about Texas.
Well, when we got agreement then, because the state of Florida this is not a federal issue. This is an issue within the state of Florida.
And if Florida votes for it, as I said, if you heard from the start, or heard a little bit, I'm a lobbyist. I take care of the laws here, and some of the, I take care of making sure the laws are made, applied, amended, whatever needs to be done here in Nevada. So, I've been dealing with this crap for a long time, and the thing is that when you realize that the law is unequal, that's why I have to laugh at that question, because there is a huge gray area between everything and everything. And so you can't ask or get an answer to a question like if what was the objection? What the hell was that shit you were talking?
Objective.
You had another word with it.
I also use the word transcendent objective truth.
Okay.
Like all men are created equal.
Right.
That's one of them.
That's one of the wrongest things that's wrong.
It transcends other considerations. That's the sort of truth that transcends other considerations. That's why it's transcendental.
Well, Bianchi is right. There has never been a civilization without its slaves and masters. There never will be. That's not as a human trait. So we can get over all this peace and kumbaya bullshit and get on with the reality of trying to make sure that our planet.
All right. Now, the thing about it is that the ethnic group of kids that's on the dead bottom when it comes down to math, when it comes down to reading, when it comes down to science, is the group that these people in Florida is trying to give some leverage to. They ain't learning, no matter where they are. Even in those schools that had quote-unquote African-centered curriculum, the kids, when they was tested, they came out dead on the bottom. It got so bad that now they want to say that tests are racist. In Oregon, the governor said that math is racist. I think even in Florida they said that. Now in California they say that math is racist. What kind of crazy mess is that?
But the thing is that when you take an IQ test, a kid in the inner city does not know what a yacht is, or a gondola, or a gazebo. They don't know that shit. So these guys are taking tests.
Where the hell do you have those questions in a math test? Math test is numerous that's being applied.
They stopped doing IQ tests like that a long time ago.
Yeah, they don't have no IQ test. It's aptitude tests to see if you can master the subject matters that you've taken.
But if you got a math test about Jimmy going to, I with 10 friends on a yacht going 20 miles an hour, for 6 miles, they don't even know what a yacht is.
But wait a minute, that's not on an IQ test. Like Bianchi just said, that's an aptitude test. An IQ test tests universal intelligence to recognize patterns, to discern movements and spatial orientation. They don't do IQ tests that have a cultural bias anymore.
Okay,
aptitude tests are different. Look, if you're going to be, if you're looking to get scholarship in a school for aerodynamic engineering, you're going to have some basic understanding of mathematics.
I was wrong.
Okay. I mean, aptitude tests are different than IQ tests. Please don't conflate the two.
Aptitude tests, you are correct.
Let me tell you something. In Oakland, California, you have a gentleman by the name of Boyd Graves who have that type of teaching for black students called Oakland Youth First, where they can come in and learn the different aspects of maritime. That is, yachts, boats, and ships. They also do it with aviation. So to say that they couldn't pass a test that has those type of verbiage in it is just not true.
That's right. I mean, it is. I mean, And like I said, how can you expect children in the inner city who, instead of being properly educated in classical educational principles and subject matter, are being indoctrinated with this intersectional nonsense, rather than what they need to be able to pass an aptitude test?
And you know the funny thing about it, you got African students that go to these schools that come from landlocked countries. That mean there's no water or oceans around, and they can pass tests that have those specific words in them. They know what a yak is. Yeah. What's wrong? What's going? And their skin is blacker than Wesley Snipes.
Or some of these Cambodian kids coming here can't even speak the language and wind up valedictorians of their high school class.
What's happened? You have pillaged and you have exploited black kids for the purpose of making money, and it's just a shame. It is just a shame. Covered up with all these different analogs and all this different hocus pocus stuff. It's shameful. What's the next topic?
George W. Bush, if it wasn't but one thing he said in his presidency that was absolutely true, the soft bigotry of low expectations is killing black kids educationally. In and around the inner city, particularly where these Democrats run these educational institutions.
To the point where you give black kids points before they even sit down and take the test.
We have a 10-minute window. I'm ending the show in 10 minutes, so would anyone like to do a conclusion?
Well, I'll make my conclusion now. It's that people haven't watched their diet. You are what you eat, and live by the Trinity and all. If it's out of balance, it's out of balance. Mind, body, and soul. When your body goes, your mind goes, your soul goes, and then you've got something like cancel culture, which we're in the midst of it, and that's what all this rhetoric about nothing is about. Critical race theory.
I just ate 25 cocktail peanuts in the kitchen from the stress of the show.
Well, that's all right.
Let me get my conclusion. My conclusion is in a question. Sorry, you in Atlanta, right? Are you near Atlanta?
Yes, sir. I'm about 20 minutes outside of Atlanta.
Let me ask you a question. Cool. What is all this fabricatory going on with this burning and looting?
It is again another one of the armed militias of the Democrat Party acting like a fool. That's what they're doing. Another armed Democrat Party militia.
Atlanta riot.
That's the type of fabricatory.
They're Antifa, which of course the Democrats for the longest time until it was only an idea. You listen to Jerry Nadler and Joe Biden. Oh, Antifa is just an idea. It's not really a movement. Well, that idea is running around burning police cars and breaking windows all over the city of Atlanta.
Well, why don't they turn the police loose if they can't? I'm sorry, go ahead, Jane.
They expect the police to behave in a certain way. If they don't, they go to immediate violence.
Well, I don't know what the police do when you shoot one of them. I mean, I know how I would act as a former police officer. I'm going to shoot back with deadly force against the person who just shot me. That's what I'm going to do. Now, I don't know what you expect the police officer to do other than that.
I'm a cop kid, and my mom was the first black policewoman in the state of Wisconsin, city of Milwaukee, and so she had a beat. She knew her people back in the 40s. She knew every person in their household, and later served her well as she became a juvenile court probation officer for another 30 years. So the main thing is that the whole paradigm is incorrect, and that's one of the reasons that I have problems because of the demagoguery that is being taught, is being shoved down some people's throats, brainwashed to think that everything is cut and dried, and there are gray areas everywhere.
Well, part of my family, some of the demography is that if you done that in their geographical location, your home and your family will be burned out and gotten the hell out of Dodge. Absolutely. That's how a lot of slaves got over here too, isn't it? Anyway, I gotta go. Sarge, good evening to the other three people.
Can I have
Jane
your
and
first
two
name,
guests.
please? Can I have the
First
first name of the caller from Georgia?
They call him Sarge. S-A-R-G.
Sarge. S-A-R-G-E.
Oh yeah, Sarge. Yeah, because I want to put it in the description. Thank you, Sarge.
You're quite welcome, madam.
Were you ever in the military?
Keep quiet.
Were you ever in the military?
Yes, I was active to the Army. I'm a 3-war combat veteran, and I was in the National Guard for 23 years.
Awesome. My son went through training at Fort Benning in 2021. He's a infantry soldier, and now he's stationed in California.
Good for him. Give him my warmest regards. I graduated from Ranger School at Benning and Jump School at Benning.
That's what he wants to be as a ranger, but they haven't picked him yet.
You know, tell him maybe he ought to think twice about it, because believe me, man, that was the toughest training I ever got in my entire life. They won't let you get any sleep.
Yeah, they gave him a desk job at a desert base in California, so right now he has it pretty cush.
No,
so,
well, he better.
But
thank
you for your enthusiasm.
Telling me he better get in shape for the Ranger assessment test, because believe me, you got to be in tip-top shape just to pass the assessment test to get in a Ranger school.
Yeah, he used to run twice a day, and now he's down to once a day. But he said it's really tough. But
yeah,
I wanted
to
thank
him know,
you for
no matter
your
how much he weighs when he goes in, he's going to be between 10 and 20 pounds lighter when he gets out. That's how bad it is.
Well, I wanted to thank you. I'll let him know. I wanted to thank you for your enthusiasm on the show. You did a great job. I just feel like John didn't really get a chance to talk, but that's okay. It's not your fault. But thanks for joining the show, okay?
I'm sorry. On this subject, I think it's vital we do something about it. We cannot let this sort of Marxist indoctrination continue amongst our children. It's going to destroy this country. Yeah, there's so many warring ideologies out there. It's just getting way too stressful. So I'm going to end this show with a song from John. And John, I have to touch base with you at the end of the show. So thanks for joining us, Don, Sarge, and John, and Bianchi hung up. So we'll talk later, y'all. Have a good one. Okay?
All right, good night.
Take care. All right, thanks, Ken, and I appreciate the conversation with everybody involved. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Thank you for calling. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Goodbye. I want to thank you, Lord. Yes, do I do. Inside my soul, I want you to know that I need you to be close to me. I'm talking about eternity. Oh, I want to thank you, Lord, for everything I do. I want to lift my voice and sing now. Sing your praises up to the Lord. Lift him up and you'll open the door. Praise you, Lord. John, you're on the air.
Yes, I am. I'm alive.
I hung up on Sarge. Because not to be mean, but not to be mean. I just wanted to touch base with you. You didn't really get a chance to talk.
Oh, that's all right. He had a lot of great points. He was very concise. He stated things very, very well. I liked his presentation.
So I had called Bianchi earlier in the week, and we talked about Don. For some reason, he didn't know Bianchi did not know Pat was Don's wife. I don't know how he missed that. I guess he just thought she was a general caller. But I felt like Bianchi maybe disrespected Don a little bit on this show, too. What's your opinion?
No. I mean, he basically, I think, we tried this once where we used to say, just let the person talk for, the next 2 or 3 minutes and just don't interrupt them. Like let them finish their thoughts and then blast away. And I think that's the main thing is when people cut back and forth. The problem always is you have a thought with 3 or 4 people, by the time it comes back, that thought is already old, So, like with me, I try not to let go of an idea because I know by the time it comes back, we're going to be in another subject, and it's a moot point. So, it's a hard thing to do.
Well, there's one thing I have to talk to you off the air, so I'm just going to text you, but because we're still on live stream, but no one can